Minister of Justice, the Honorable Mr. Justice Brian Sykes, OJ, CD, Chief Justice of Jamaica, the Honorable Mr. Justice Brooks, OJ, CD, President of the Court of Appeal of Jamaica, the Honorable, the Chief Justice Sundaresh Menon, Chief Justice of Singapore and or esteemed guest speaker, the Honorable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, the Honorable Brian Murray, Queen's Counsel, Chief Justice of the Bahamas, Honorable Madam Chief Justice Michelle Arana, Chief Justice of Belize, Dame Janice M. Pereira, Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, the Honorable Madame Justice Yonette Cummings Edwards, OR, CCH, Chancellor of the Judiciary of Jamaica, of Guyana, the Honorable Madame Justice Roxanne George Wiltshire, CCH, SC, Chief Justice of Guyana, Honorable Mr. Justice Sharad Arvind Bobde, Chief Justice of India, Her Ladyship, Mrs. Justice Mabel Ajiman, Chief Justice of the Turks and Caicos Islands, Miss Lenissa Waheed, Director INL, U.S. Embassy, representing Mr. John McIntyre, Charge d'Affaires, U.S. Embassy, Judges of the Court of Appeal, Judges of the Supreme Court, Sir Brian Knowles, High Court Judge of the United Kingdom and Wales Judiciary, Mrs. Grace Ann Stewart McFarlane, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Justice, Mr. Courtney Williams, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of National Security, Miss Paula Vanessa Llewellyn, CD, QC, Director of Public Prosecutions, Lieutenant General Rocky Mead, CD, JP, PhD, PSC, Chief of Defense Staff, Jamaica Defense Force, Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Fitzbailey, representing the Commissioner of Police, Major General Anthony Anderson, CD, JP. His Honor Mr. Chester Crooks, Chief Judge of the Parish Courts, Judges of the Parish Courts, Mrs. Tricia Cameron Anglin, Director Court Administration Division, Miss Grace Carras, Secretariat to the Standing International Forum of Commercial Courts, members of staff from the Court of Appeal, Supreme Court, Parish Courts, and Court Administration Division, or specially invited guests, members of the media. Good afternoon to those of you who join us from Jamaica and the Caribbean. Good morning to our guests in Singapore, and good evening to our guests in the United Kingdom and India. It is my distinct honor to be your chairperson for this historic function, and an even greater one to invite the Honorable Mr. Justice Brian Sykes, Chief Justice of Jamaica, to welcome you and deliver his opening remarks, after which there will be a video presentation.
Thank you very much. Madam Chairperson, Her Honor, Ms. Sanchia Burrell, Senior Judge of the Parish Court, Honorable Mr. Delroy Chuck, Queen's Counsel, Member of Parliament and Minister of Justice, the Honorable Mr. Justice Brooks, Order of Jamaica, Order of Distinction Commander Class, President of the Court of Appeal, the Honorable Chief Justice Sundaresh Menon, Chief Justice of Singapore, and our guest speaker for this evening, the Honorable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Dame Janice Pereira, Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, the Honorable Sir Brian Murray, Chief Justice of Commonwealth of the Bahamas, Honorable Mrs. Justice Mabel Ajemang, Chief Justice of Turks and Caicos, the Honorable Madam Justice Yonette Cummings Edwards, Chancellor of the Judiciary of Guyana, the Honorable Madam Chief Justice Michelle Arana, Chief Justice of Belize, the Honorable Madam Justice Roxanne George Wilshire, Chief Justice of Guyana, Honorable Mr. Justice Sharad Arvind Bobde, Chief Justice of India, Ms. Lenisa Waheed, Director, INL, Embassy of the United States, representing Mr. John McIntyre, Charge d'Affaires, United States Embassy, Judges of the Court of Appeal of Jamaica, Judges of the Supreme Court, Sir Robin Knowles, Judge of the High Court of England and Wales, Ms. Grace Ann Stewart McFarlane, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Justice, Mr. Courtney Williams, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of National Security, Ms. Paula Llewellyn, Order of Distinction, Commander Class Queen's Counsel, Director of Public Prosecutions, Lieutenant General Rocky Mead, Chief of Defense Staff, Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Fitz Bailey, representing the Commissioner of Police, Major General Anthony Anderson, His Honor, Mr. Chester Crooks, Chief Judge of the Parish Courts, Judges of the Parish Courts, Mrs. Tricia Cameron Anglin, Director Court Administration, Ms. Grace Carras, Secretariat to the Standing International Forum of Commercial Courts, members of staff of the Court of Appeal, Supreme Court, Parish Courts, and Court Administration Division, other specially invited guests, members of the media, and for those of us joining on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, good afternoon, and good evening, and good morning to our visitors in different parts of the world. Now, today marks one of the most significant events in the history of the Jamaican judiciary. It marks the establishment of the Commission of Senior Judges of the Parish Courts. Now, for those unfamiliar with our legal system, there are 4 tiers. There are the lay magistrates' court, presided over by justices of the peace. Next are the parish courts, presided over by judges who have to be attorneys at law for at least 7 years. At the same level as these parish courts are specialized courts, such as the family courts, the tax courts, the coroner's courts, the traffic court, the children's court, the drug treatment court, and the special coroner's court. After these courts, there's the Supreme Court, which is a first instance court of unlimited civil and criminal jurisdiction, and appeals from the parish courts and the Supreme Court go to the Court of Appeal. And from the Court of Appeal, one goes to the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council. And there's also the Caribbean Court of Justice, of which Jamaica is a part by virtue of the fact that we are part of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, and so the Caribbean Court of Justice has jurisdiction over matters arising under the treaty, and that court, the president of that court is our esteemed brother, Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders. The parish courts have wide but limited criminal and civil jurisdiction. The criminal jurisdiction is limited by the amount of money or custodial sentences that may be imposed. In the civil jurisdiction, there's a monetary limit. Now, our parish courts are located in 14 parishes. The parishes of Kingston and St. Andrew are treated as one jurisdiction, and so there are 13 courts serving 14 parishes. The courts have a head station located in the parish capital or any other significant town in the event that the head station has to be relocated from the parish capital. And the head station is supported by satellite courts called outstations, which are strategically placed throughout the parish so that ordinary citizens can have access to court services. They apply the same law as would be applied to any civil claim or criminal matter in the Supreme Court. Now, these courts have been in existence for well over 100 years, with the names being changed from district courts in the 1800s to resident magistrates courts. And in 2016, they are now known as parish courts. These courts are fundamental to the delivery of justice to our citizens. And this is where the majority of our citizens come in contact with the court system. And just to give you an idea of the contact that the citizens have with these courts, in 2020, the total number of cases filed in the Supreme Court across all divisions, civil, revenue, commercial, criminal, insolvency, family, was 12,757. By comparison, on the criminal side of the parish courts alone, in 2020, there were 21,166 new cases. And it is expected that during 2021, unless something happens, we should be seeing approximately 25,000 cases. On the civil side, 15,000 cases were filed in 2020, and it is anticipated that 19,000, almost 20,000 civil cases will be filed in 2021. In effect, then, the parish courts received a total of 37,000 cases, both criminal and civil, compared with the Supreme Court of 12,757. So there can be no doubt then of the importance of these courts and the very important work that the judges and staff of those courts are doing. And let me say that and acknowledge here to this international audience that the judges and staff in these courts work very hard. And the figures bear this out. We began keeping statistics in 2016, the summer of 2016. And since we began keeping that kind of information, a number of things have come to light. Firstly, we know that the courts are not as inefficient as persons were suggesting previous to the collection of statistics. Since 2016, we now know that 83% of the cases filed in those courts are disposed of in less than 12 months. Our time standard is 24 months. We are aiming to have cases disposed of 24 months from the point of entry within any court. And so to have courts that are disposing of 83% of criminal cases in under 12 months, I think it is a remarkable achievement. And of the cases filed in 2016, we have a net backlog rate, that is cases older than 24 months, of under 5% of the backlog. And if we extend the analysis even further, we will see that for all cases filed, our net backlog rate, which was 32% in 2016, is now down to less than 10%. And so that is attributed to the hard work that these courts have done and continue to do in terms of the delivery of justice to our people. The parish courts have shown great resilience in that the clearance rate, which is an important measure of the productivity of courts, that is, our statistician informs us that it is measured in terms of the number of cases disposed of per 100 cases. And so in 2020, in the first quarter, that is January to March, our clearance rate was 96.47%. That is, we were disposing of 96 cases for every 100 cases coming in. Then COVID came along in March of 2020. March 8, 2020 was our first reported case of the COVID-19 virus in Jamaica. And that led to a series of events, including the closure of the courts, and we were offering only emergency services. So understandably, in that context, the clearance rate fell to 51.50% by the end of June, that is June 30. But then the recovery began. And so by December 31, 2020, the parish courts were back up at disposing of 121 cases for every 100 cases coming in. And I think that that is a remarkable achievement, and I think the judges there ought to be congratulated, and I do so publicly now in this forum to recognize the work that they have been doing in very, very difficult circumstances and less than ideal circumstances in terms of the physical plant and other work circumstances. On the civil side of the court, what I referred to before was on the criminal side. On the civil side of the court, the gross clearance rate at the end of December 2020 was 93%. That is to say, 93 cases were disposed of for every 100 cases coming in, which represented an increase in productivity of those courts. So in other words, during a major crisis, such as the COVID-19, the courts have shown great resilience and have actually improved their output and productivity. Now, why this is of even great importance and significance is that this is taking place in the context of what I would call a technologically starved environment with very little remote hearing capacity and little or no capacity for remote trials or trials to take place remotely. So to have that kind of performance is truly remarkable. Now, for these achievements to be sustained and improved, there needs to be an appropriate forum where the leaders of the courts, the judges who are responsible for the administration of the courts and overseeing the delivery of justice, a forum where they can meet and have discussions, develop best practices, formulate systems and structures for the continued efficiency of the courts. And this is where the commission of the senior judges of the parish courts come in. This commission comprises all senior judges of the court, the senior judges of the family court, the traffic court, the children's court, the coroner's court, and the special coroner's court are all members of the commission. The commission is established to assist the Chief Justice and the Chief Judge of the parish courts by providing thought leadership and practical assistance for the effective implementation of policies, practices, and procedures which are consistent with the strategic plan of the judiciary and that will guide the operations of the courts. The commission is also to develop and oversee the implementation of best practices in all areas of the parish courts and to develop strategies to address weaknesses in operations and make recommendations to the Chief Justice and the Chief Judge of the parish court regarding the administration of justice. In effect, it is providing an incubator for future generation of court leaders within the parish court system itself and beyond, since many of the judges of the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal began their judicial careers in these courts. So it is vital then that we have an environment in which leadership talent can be identified, nurtured, and developed for future service within the judiciary. So the senior judge then, in addition to being the principal judicial officer in the parish court, also has the responsibility of seeing to it that the overall direction of the court is in keeping with the strategic plan that we have developed. We'll also be responsible for the development and implementation of the tier 2 and 3 levels of the strategic plan for the particular courts, to oversee that the court is complying with all financial regulations, because within recent times, the courts have been given the responsibility through the CAD for administering its budget and other services necessary for the administration and the effective administration of those courts. To carry out that important function, the senior judges will be supported by the Court Administration Division, headed by Mrs. Tricia Cameron Anglin, and this division was created by an Act of Parliament in 2016. The amendment to the Judicature Supreme Court Act in 2016. And so the CAD, as it is called, was made a part of the Supreme Court, and it is answerable to the Chief Justice. Under the legislation, the CAD is also answerable to Parliament for the non-legal activities of the courts, and CAD is required to produce audited financial statements which are tabled in Parliament. And the head of CAD can be summoned to Parliament to explain matters in these statements and to answer questions relating to the administration of the courts. So this commission then has a very significant role to play in supporting and developing the administration of justice within the Jamaica. Also, in 2016, the Office of the Chief Judge of the Parish Courts was also created, and he has a significant role. In fact, the legislation states that his primary responsibility is to oversee the administration of the parish courts under the direction of the Chief Justice, so that the Chief Judge of the parish court is an essential and pivotal person in the administration of the parish courts, and will also be vital as we continue the thrust to become more efficient and to introduce appropriate technology so that we can get on with the business of delivering effective and efficient justice to our citizens. In order to continue the path of excellence that has been established, we have chosen the balanced scorecard methodology, which in the context of the courts is based on the International Framework for Court Excellence. So by uniting the best of the balanced scorecard and the International Framework for Court Excellence model, we intend to embed both the idea and practice of continuous improvement. That is to say, each year we ask ourselves, how can we get better? Or to use the language of the IFC, CE, and our strategic plan, how can we improve stakeholder satisfaction and also increase trust and confidence in the judiciary? This self-reflection will take place during our annual strategic planning retreat, which is scheduled for the third week of August each year. This began in 2018. 2021 will be our third year. So let me say that a number of the ideas and a number of the things that we have been implementing are not new. I have, since becoming Chief Justice, met with my fellow Chief Justices within the region and beyond. And so from Singapore, where our esteemed speaker is from this evening, I have adopted the idea of developing a course for court leaders, or to use the expression broadly, when I say court leaders, to include court administrators and all judges, registrars, deputy registrars involved in court leadership and management. We have begun discussions with our leading university, that is the University of the West Indies, in this regard. And from a former president of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Sir Dennis Byron, I have adopted the mantra of using technology to do things better, faster, more efficiently, and using appropriate technology to increase access to justice. It only remains for me to welcome all my judicial colleagues of the Judiciary of Jamaica, Chief Justices from the region, the President of the Court of Appeal, that is the Honorable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, the Chief Justice of India, Arvinder Bobde, who is awake at approximately 3 a.m. there, Monday morning, New Delhi time, and he's doing this ahead of a full day sitting of the Supreme Court of India, and our esteemed guest speaker, the Honorable Chief Justice Sundaresh Menon, Chief Justice of Singapore, who is, I would suspect, has been awake since approximately 3:30 or 4 a.m. Singapore time. So I wish to thank you, sir, for graciously accepting our invitation and waking up at what some may consider to be an unusual hour to share with us during our evening time. It is now 5:24, so I wish to thank you very much, and to all our guests who have joined us from here and abroad. I know that, Sir Robin, it is approximately 11 there in the United Kingdom. So welcome to all our guests, to all our judges from all the courts of Jamaica. This evening will be a time well spent. Thank you very much. And I know shown in short order. Thank you.
Courts begin and end at the parish court level. The parish courts and the people of Jamaica are deserving of a strong parish court system for the adjudication of matters. This is the reason for the senior judges of the Parish Courts Commission to strengthen the administrative leadership of the courts, thus building a strong system of justice in the lower courts. The formation of the Commission is in keeping with the wider thrust towards the modernization of the judiciary, strengthening the leadership and management capabilities of the parish courts, moving some court processes into the virtual space, using modern technology to make the courts more efficient and accessible, and streamlining court processes across all parish courts to ensure uniformity and ease of doing business. Members of the senior judges of the Parish Courts Commission will meet, review, and make recommendations to the Chief Judge of the Parish Courts and the Chief Justice for improved workflow processes and performances. We continue to work to build a court system of which all Jamaicans can be proud. The judiciary of Jamaica, driven by technology, strong on accountability, and committed to the rule of law, on our way to becoming the best in the Caribbean in 3 years and among the best in the world in 6 years.
On our way indeed. Congratulations to my colleagues and the staff of the parish courts across the island. Well done. Very well done. His Honor Mr. Chester Crooks, Chief Judge of the Parish Courts, will now bring his greetings.
Good afternoon, all, or good morning, depending on where you are. Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief Justice Honorable Mr. Brian Sykes, President of the Court of Appeal, Mr. Justice Patrick Brooks, our honored friend and guest speaker, the Honorable Chief Justice Sundaresh Menon from Singapore, fellow judges of the Parish Court, Minister Delroy Chuck, the Minister of Justice, distinguished guests and friends, both local and abroad. I have, as usual, I have the unenviable task of speaking after the chief, who is usually so very thorough, he leaves me nothing to do or say. Not that I have a problem with that. Based on that video, they say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So based on that video, I think it's fair to say that I've spoken quite enough. I would like to just join with the chief in bringing greetings and thank you for this momentous occasion. I'd also like to say special thanks to the Chief Justice, because based on what he's saying, I think either his job is going to get a whole lot easier or my job is going to get a whole lot harder, or both. That remains to be seen. But thank you all. I greet you.
The Honorable Mr. Justice Patrick Brooks, President of the Court of Appeal, will now make his remarks on the occasion.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. All protocol having been established, please allow me to say good afternoon to the Honorable Chief Justice. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen all. I bring you greetings from the judges and staff of the Court of Appeal of Jamaica. We congratulate the Honorable Chief Justice, Chief Judge of the Parish Court, His Honor Mr. Chester Crooks, and all those who have helped to design this initiative and to bring it to fruition with this salutary launch of the Commission of the Senior Judges of the Parish Court. On Thursday of last week, ladies and gentlemen, I got a first-hand demonstration of the need for and the potential effect of this commission. I witnessed an informal discussion of a particular issue related to the COVID-19 disease and how it was affecting a particular parish court, one of our parish courts. The brainstorming between the senior parish court judges who were present, the Honorable Chief Justice, and the Chief Judge of the parish court, as they considered the advice by the staff of the Court Advisory Division of the Supreme Court, was inspiring both to see and hear. The parish courts interface with the bulk of our litigants in this country. And by way of contrast, whereas over the past 3 years, less than 300 new cases, civil plus criminal, were filed in each year in the Court of Appeal in our country, the number of new cases filed across the 14 parishes over the past 3 years averaged over 45,000 cases per year. That translates to an average of 3,500 approximately per parish. And although it is acknowledged that the bulk of those are shared between the Corporate Area Parish Court, the St. Catherine Parish Court, and the St. James Parish Court, the Chief Justice has already informed you of the impressive clearance rates that those parish courts produce. Now, the logistics in handling that large number of litigants means that great stress is placed on the administration of each court, and as well on the central administration by the Chief Judge of the Parish Court, and by extension, the Honorable Chief Justice. And that's just the caseload. Also to be considered are the general day-to-day matters, which the Chief Justice has already mentioned. The senior parish court judges play a significant role in meeting the administrative challenges that those courts face. A formal structure to carry out what I witnessed informally on Thursday last would be of significant benefit to the administration of justice in this country. It would allow for a structured approach to the problems as they arise and to garnering all the benefits that the Chief Justice has mentioned. And of course, that commission would be different from a judges' association. A judges' association would primarily be aimed at advancing the interests of its members and improving the welfare and terms of and conditions of service of the judges. Undoubtedly, there would be some sharing of expertise and exchange of ideas, which would benefit the individual courts, but that would almost be considered a spin-off benefit. The Court of Appeal gets a minute fraction of the cases that are decided in the parish courts. We get significantly less than 100 per year. And there are several reasons for that, but undoubtedly among them is a general satisfaction with the standard of justice that those courts produce. The Court of Appeal thanks all the judges of the parish courts for their hard work and their efforts in that regard. For the cases that are sent to the Court of Appeal, we ask for swift action in the preparation of the records of appeal. We hope that the Commission will be able to develop a strategy for expediting the preparation and dispatch of those records to our court. So, we wish this initiative well. We have every confidence that it will be successful. The experience that I had in that informal session that I mentioned earlier demonstrated to me that the parish courts have among its senior judges a cadre of bright, eager, and certainly efficient judges who will advance the welfare of the courts and improve the efficiency with which the courts serve the public of Jamaica. So thanks very much for allowing me to participate in this launch. And I wish you all a very good afternoon, evening, morning, and ask that you all remain safe. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Abanks Miller will forgive me for trespassing on her terrain by thanking Justice Brooks for that beautifully said affirmation of the parish courts. Thank you so much, sir. I now invite the Honorable Mr. Delroy Chuck, Minister of Justice, to bring his greetings.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Ms. Sanchia Burrell, Honorable Chief Justice Brian Sykes, and I will adopt the protocols by thanking all of our overseas guests for joining us and all the distinguished guests, the media and personnel who have joined us in the launch of this commission of senior judges of the parish courts. I won't be long because I know all the chief justices and all the distinguished personnel are here to listen to the presentation from the Honorable Chief Justice of Singapore, the Chief Justice Sundaresh Menon. You may not remember Chief Justice Menon, but we met and had a discussion in Singapore a couple years ago when I visited for the signing of the Singapore Convention on Mediation. And I had the opportunity to tour the Supreme Court, and I certainly hope that all the Chief Justices who are listening should tour that magnificent edifice, the Supreme Court in Singapore. I want to thank you, sir, for agreeing to make a presentation this afternoon. I would like to inform all who are listening, Chief Justices from across the region, India and the UK, that here in Jamaica, we are very proud of our Chief Justice, Honorable Brian Sykes, who, since he has been Chief Justice just under 3 years ago, has really brought not only leadership to the courts, but has engaged in many strategic planning and reform of the system. And this historic moment this afternoon is another step in his focus and how he sees the leadership emerging in the parish courts. As he and the president of the court inform you, the vast majority of cases are dealt with by the ordinary citizens in the parish courts. And I can say that from where I sit, we intend the executive to ensure that the maximum or the optimum support is given not only to the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal, but to the parish courts. At the moment, the Chief Justice and the President can boast that they can now do most of their cases and matters virtually. But we hope during 2021 that most, if not all, the parish courts will be able to do cases virtually, which means that we hope that they will be even more efficient and timely in the hearing and delivery of their judgments and completion of their cases. Many of you from around the world may not know, but Jamaica is a very mountainous, a very beautiful country because of all the mountains. But the challenge for that is interconnectivity is a problem. So this is the real difficulty in ensuring that all the parish courts can deliver virtual hearings. But the executive, and I'm pushing it very hard, will try to get broadband connectivity right across the parishes of Jamaica during 2021. I can assure all the Chief Justices and listeners that the government of Jamaica will support the Chief Justice in his ambition to make Jamaica judicial system one of the best in the world. Resources are very scarce, and the competition for scarce resources is even stronger because in a third world country, a country that has going through this pandemic, we have severe challenges. But let me assure you, Chief Justice, judges at the parish courts, judges in Jamaica, Chief Justices who have joined us, that we are determined that their courts should get as much of the resources as it deserves. And even if we don't get it in this fiscal year, I will be campaigning very hard at another level with my colleague ministers to ensure that enough resources are provided to the courts. Justice in Jamaica is not only very important because we say in Jamaica, without justice, there can be no peace. And I can assure all the Chief Justices across the island that the present Chief Justice is doing everything in his powers to ensure that cases are dealt with in a timely manner. And the statistics are showing it, and we hope to give him support from the executive. And let me assure everyone listening that Jamaica is moving definitely to become a technologically savvy system where our court system you will be able in short order to view cases in our courts from anywhere around the world, because we feel that Wi-Fi connection should be available so that anyone who has a case in the Jamaican court, whether he or she is in India, Singapore, or the UK, they should be able to go on YouTube or Wi-Fi and see exactly what is happening to their cases. I want to congratulate you, Chief Justice Sykes, and the head of the Chief Parish Court Judge, Chester Crooks, and hope that this afternoon will be the beginning of great things in the parish courts. And I wish you all great success in the months and years ahead.
Honorable Minister, I only hope that you heard the virtual round of applause on both occasions when you mentioned broadband across the island and Wi-Fi access. Sir, we look forward to that dispensation. At this time, I ask that we give our attention to Director's Court Administration Division, Mrs. Tricia Cameron Anglin, as she introduces our guest speaker for this auspicious occasion.
Thank you, Judge Burrell. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, everyone. Our esteemed guest speaker this afternoon is Chief Justice Sundarish Menon. Chief Justice Menon was appointed Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Singapore on the 6th of November 2012. Chief Justice Menon graduated with a Bachelor of Laws, First Class Honours from the National University of Singapore in 1986 and a Master of Laws from Harvard Law School in 1991. He was admitted as an advocate and solicitor in Singapore in 1987 and as an attorney and counselor at law in New York in 1992. After he was called to the bar in Singapore, he practiced with major local and international law firms, primarily as an advocate in the fields of commercial litigation and arbitration, construction law, and insolvency law. From 2006 to 2007, he served as a Judicial Commissioner of the Supreme Court. He was appointed Senior Counsel in 2008. In 2010, he was appointed the 6th Attorney General of Singapore, a post he relinquished in 2012, shortly before his appointment as a Judge of Appeal. He was appointed to the Presidential Council for Minority Rights upon his appointment as Attorney General in 2010 and was later appointed as its chairman in 2012 upon his appointment as Chief Justice. He is also the president of the Singapore Academy of Law. Chief Justice Menon is married with 3 children. Honorable Chief Justice Menon, we welcome you virtually to Jamaica, The platform is now yours for your address.
Thank you so very much for those kind remarks. Madam Chairperson, Your Honor, Ms. Sanchia Burrell, Senior Judge of the Parish Courts, the Honorable Mr. Delroy Chuck, Queen's Counsel, Minister of Justice, and thank you, sir, for your kind words. I do recall our meeting when you were in Singapore a couple of years ago. The Honorable, the Chief Justice, Mr. Justice Sykes, Chief Justice of Jamaica, the Honorable Mr. Justice Brooks, President of the Court of Appeal of Jamaica, the Honorable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice, Your Honor, Mr. Chester Crooks, Chief Judge of the Parish Courts, Chief Justices, judicial colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first thank Chief Justice Sykes for inviting me to join you this evening for this very important launch of the Commission of Senior Judges of the Parish Courts. This is a significant milestone in the transformation journey of the Jamaican courts, and it is part of a process that was initiated last year with a historic strategic plan titled Benchmarking the Future, Courting Excellence. The blueprint of that plan draws inspiration from the International Framework for Court Excellence, which was developed by a global consortium of courts, including the state courts of Singapore. And it is most gratifying that the seeds of the consortium's work have found fertile ground in Jamaica. Let me congratulate Chief Justice Sykes and the Jamaican judiciary for the outstanding progress it has made and the excellent work that is being done in Jamaica, as was recognized by the Honorable Minister and as was outlined in the Chief Justice's opening remarks. I think Chief Justice Sykes put it aptly in his introduction to the strategic plan when he spoke of, and I quote, a journey towards court excellence. Indeed, what lies ahead can in many ways be likened to a long but rewarding journey. First, every worthwhile journey is a process and will take time. The strategic plan envisages a roadmap stretching over a period of 4 or 5 years. In Singapore, it has been some 30 years since our major reforms were undertaken in the 1990s. And despite the modest successes we have enjoyed, there remains much to be done. The work goes on, and excellence is perhaps best understood as a horizon towards which our journey must continue with purpose and resolve. Second, it also helps when embarking on a long journey to look ahead to the destination. And if I may say so, your vision of court excellence, of an efficient court system able to render sound decisions in a timely fashion at a reasonable cost, to be one of the best courts in the world, is without question a destination well worth the while. And finally, as with any long journey, we must expect that the going might get tough. And when it does, there is no better balm than the encouragement and support of others on the same road. Though we all hail from different jurisdictions, I believe that as judges, we are part of a global family that is united by a shared mission, the fair and efficient administration of justice. In our individual journeys towards that common goal, we have much to gain from exchanging our experiences. In that spirit, let me share some of the lessons that we have learned in our quest to improve the efficiency and administration of our courts. I propose to cover 3 points. First, the importance of continually striving towards organizational efficiency and excellence. Second, the transformative potential of technology. And third, cultivating judicial leadership, which is key to sustaining the drive towards change. Through the work of many hands over many years, the Singapore judiciary has built a hard-won reputation for efficiency and timeliness. But this was not always the case. Beginning in the late 1940s, our courts struggled with a growing backlog of cases. By the 1990s, the situation in what is now known as the state courts, which is about the equivalent of the parish courts in Jamaica, was that both civil and criminal litigants had to wait around 2 years just for their cases to be heard. And the situation was much worse in the Supreme Court. Civil litigants could expect an average wait of between 5 and 7 years for their case to be heard. In a sobering indictment of the state of our justice system, Justice Lai Kiew Chai, a former judge of the Supreme Court, recalled as follows in 1999. He said, "At the beginning of the last decade in this millennium, the picture was a dismal one. A civil case generally took about 6 years before it was dealt with by the Court of Appeal. In criminal justice, the delays were reaching intolerable limits. The courts, in sharp contrast with other constitutional arms of government, stood out like a sore thumb for a lackadaisical dispatch of business. Justice was delayed. There was really no answer to mounting criticisms that our judicial system was seriously wanting in many respects." Something clearly needed to be done, and in 1990, efforts at comprehensive reform began in earnest. Until then, the relatively leisurely pace of litigation had largely been dictated by the parties. Generous timelines were routinely approved, and adjournments were common. Under this somnolent regime, cases would progress only when counsel took the initiative. This state of affairs seemed to stem, in part at least, from the view that the judge's role was simply to decide cases fairly and justly. Questions of when and how a dispute reached the judge, which concerned the efficiency of the process, were thought not to be the court's concern. Rather, it was left to the parties. Unfortunately, this misses a critical point, which is that court adjudication is not just a means of settling disputes. It is that for sure, but beyond that, it is a public service to secure access to justice for the vindication of citizens' rights. That perspective means that the judiciary is obliged to operate this public service within the constraints of the scarce and finite resources it is allocated. In that light, it becomes apparent that the unnecessary protraction of a case wastefully consumes valuable and finite judicial resources, which affects not just the parties to that case, but also the justice system's ability to do justice for all. It follows that the judiciary has an important interest in and a particular responsibility for ensuring the efficient conduct of litigation. It was therefore necessary that we exercise control over the pace of litigation. And we started doing so by the adoption of much more active approaches to case management. Amongst other things, we introduced pretrial conferences, which allowed for closer monitoring of matters in the lead up to trial. Timelines were substantially tightened, and trial dates, once fixed, would not be vacated unless this was unavoidable. Second, judicial time and resources were carefully managed and optimized. Processes were changed so that matters that were largely procedural or routine, such as many bankruptcy petitions, as an example, were placed before registrars in the first instance, thus freeing up judicial time for the hearing of trials. And judges were provided with enhanced support and assistance to enable them to carry out the core work of decision-making and judgment writing more efficiently. A judicial clerkship scheme was established initially to assist the Court of Appeal, and this was later extended to judges of the High Court. Third, new processes were developed and existing ones were transformed. The pursuit of efficiency requires us to continually search for new ways to simplify, streamline, and transform our processes, which may be too slow, too laborious, or too costly. One critical step in this direction was to expand the use of written advocacy in various court processes. And since implementing this, we have found that written advocacy tends to yield submissions that are better focused and also allows the judge to come better prepared, thus shortening the hearing time. Within a few years of introducing these measures, the picture had dramatically changed. Substantial progress was made in clearing the backlog, whereas in 1990, there were more than 2,000 cases outstanding in the Supreme Court's docket. By 1992, that number had almost halved, and by 1994, it had shrunk by more than 90%. In less than half a decade, the average wait for a commercial case to be heard in the High Court had fallen from around 6 years in the late 1990s to about 1.5 years. To ensure that these high standards would not slip over time, an internal system of stringent key performance indicators, or KPIs, was put in place to monitor the continuing efficiency and productivity of the courts. Today, this remains an integral part of our quest for efficiency. Thus, in the General Division of the High Court, our target is for at least 85% of all writs to be disposed of within 18 months of the date of filing. And this is a target we have successfully met every year since its introduction. In the Court of Appeal, the current target is for appeal hearings to be fixed within 19 weeks from the time the record of appeal becomes ready and the parties' preparations can begin in earnest. I want to draw 2 points from this account. First, Herculean though the task of judicial reform might seem at the outset, with a good plan, the firm and committed leadership of the judiciary, and the willing participation of all stakeholders in the justice system, the task can be established and accomplished. And second, the end goal, an efficient and trusted justice system, is not a fixed metric to be achieved. Rather, it is a standard that we strive towards and must maintain over time. As our economies grow and societies mature, disputes will arise with greater frequency and present with growing complexity. If the standards of efficiency we have set are to be maintained, it is critical that the courts, in terms of both our infrastructure and our processes, evolve alongside the societies we serve, so that we remain able to meet the changing needs of those who come to us seeking justice. This leads to my next point, which concerns the crucial role that technology will play in the transformation of court processes. The pandemic has been a shot in the arm, at least for the adoption of technology in justice systems worldwide. And this has been so not least through the rapid uptake of video conferencing technology. But as Professor Richard Susskind has noted, we are now only at the foothills of transformation. It is essential that we leverage on the present momentum to drive the transformation of court services in even more fundamental ways. Allow me to make 2 observations on the role that technology will play in this transformation. First, in thinking about the role of technology in reshaping our justice system, we should develop both near and longer term strategies. In the near term, we should clearly search for tweaks to our existing processes that can be easily implemented to deliver quick gains. There is sometimes a tendency to assume that worthwhile solutions must be novel or spectacular, but it is often the humblest and simplest of things involving commonly available technologies that can make all the difference. The rapid shift to remote hearings amidst the pandemic last year is an excellent example of this. As courts worldwide were forced to shut their doors when lockdowns were imposed to contain the pandemic, remote lines of access were the precious threads by which the work of the courts could continue. The technology which enabled that, video conferencing, had been in existence for decades. And this, I think, underscores the point that the best solutions are sometimes those overlooked in plain sight. In the longer term, we must recognize that the true potential of technology lies not just in the digitization or automation of our existing processes, but in technology's capacity to transform them entirely. Thus, instead of stopping at asking whether oral hearings have been made more efficient by being conducted remotely, the more fundamental question might be, are oral hearings even necessary all the time? Could, for example, asynchronous online exchanges offer an even better and more efficient means of facilitating communications between the court and the parties? The use of asynchronous processes in case management is presently under study in our state courts. Under a series of ongoing pilot programs, a host of case management processes are now managed asynchronously using email. As a result, the affected parties need not attend physically in court throughout the case management process. Instead, they can update the court, receive directions, and even decisions from the court anywhere at any time. For the self-represented litigants in particular, the costs of an attendance in court are often hidden. Consider, for example, the employee who must take unpaid leave to attend court, or the parent who must make urgent childcare arrangements. These are hidden, but nonetheless substantial costs. Asynchronous hearings could therefore prove a massive boon, not just in enhancing efficiency, but also in enabling effective access to justice. Of course, as we march on with the digital transformation of the courts, we must not leave behind those unable to access digital court services, either for the lack of means or know-how. This has sometimes been referred to as the problem of the digital divide. And while it will diminish in intensity over time as internet and mobile penetration rates increase, and more people become comfortable with the use of technology, so long as it persists, it cannot be ignored. The concern is potentially of special gravity because it will likely feature disproportionately in the lower courts, which tend to see higher numbers of self-represented litigants unfamiliar with the legal system and its processes. Such persons may require in-person assistance, and it may therefore be necessary to ensure that offline options remain available. And so when we introduced the e-filing system for court documents, physical service bureaus were set up so that those unable to file documents electronically could seek physical assistance. In a similar vein, our family justice courts, or FJC, in seeking to address the needs of self-represented litigants unfamiliar with the Zoom video conferencing platform last year, issued a technical guide and an instructional video on its use. The FJC also established what it called Zoom rooms, where litigants who could not set up a call on their own could come and be assisted to attend an online hearing. The critical contribution that the Zoom rooms made to sustaining access to justice is reflected in the fact that the FJC cleared more than a third of its regular caseload using these Zoom rooms during our lockdown. Let me close the discussion on technological transformation by speaking about two of our first forays into the digitization of legal processes. Electronic filing, or e-filing, was a completely new concept just 20 years ago, when our first such system, the Electronic Filing System, or EFS, was launched in 2000. Its most basic function was also its most revolutionary. Law firms with an account on the system could, for the first time, electronically file documents at any time of the day without having to physically attend at the courts. The EFS was replaced 13 years later by e-litigation. As a web-based service, e-litigation introduced yet another dimension of accessibility by eliminating the need for the installation of special software and access by smart cards. Instead, any court user with a web browser is now able to commence proceedings, file documents, and monitor her case. Another example of the rapid iterative change associated with technology is in legal research. Many of us will remember a time when legal research meant making a trip to the law library. Today, we can access vast amounts of information far in excess of anything that any law library could offer, all at the click of a mouse. In 1990, our first ever complete database of Singapore legislation was uploaded onto a platform called LawNet. As the needs of the legal profession evolved, LawNet too evolved to meet those needs. It has since been transformed from a simple repository to a searchable one-stop portal for legal research, information, and transactions. And plans are presently underway to further develop LawNet into a personalized workspace where a lawyer can find authorities, annotate them and keep them, and bookmark pages and flag related cases. When we introduced these technologies 2 or 3 decades ago, the use of technology in the courts was seen more as an interesting novelty than as essential infrastructure. Today, they have become indispensable parts of our litigation landscape. Our early investments in these technologies, not just in terms of the financial outlay, but also the organizational commitment to a tech-enabled vision of the future, have already paid handsome dividends. These technologies enabled our bench and bar to work remotely amidst the pandemic and were critical to our ability to keep the wheels of justice turning. I turn to my final point, judicial leadership. This, in my view, is key to sustaining the journey towards court excellence. There are, I think, at least 3 reasons why judicial leadership at all levels of the court is of such importance. First, at the organizational level, it is essential that the judiciary takes the lead in driving policy that directly affects our ability to ensure the fair and efficient administration of justice. Here, let me congratulate Chief Justice Sykes and his team on the development of the strategic plan. The plan sets out a clear vision for the transformation of the court system, one that is truly by, for, and of the judiciary. And it carefully explains how that vision will be achieved in concrete and practical terms. That, if I may say so, is an outstanding example of judicial leadership at an organizational level. In Singapore, judicial reform is and has been actively spearheaded by the judiciary. I've already referred to the reforms of 1990, the chief architect of which was the then Chief Justice Yong Pang How. And the entire effort was supported and led by countless judges and judicial officers. Today, the Singapore judiciary continues to be at the forefront of organizational reform, aimed at ensuring that our courts remain able to meet the needs of an increasingly sophisticated and discerning public that we serve. To that end, we have established various new departments within the judiciary. And here again, I commend the establishment of the CAD. Let me mention a few examples from Singapore. An Office of Public Affairs was established to oversee public engagement and court outreach soon after I took office. The Singapore Judicial College was launched in 2015 to ensure that our judicial training and professional development needs are well met. An Office of Transformation and Innovation was set up to coordinate and drive transformative change throughout the entire judiciary. And most recently, a Knowledge Management Office was established in order to ensure that institutional know-how is properly archived, retained, and deployed. Second, cultivating a culture of leadership at all levels of the court system will allow the organization to fully leverage on the experience and expertise of all its people. In Singapore, we do this through an institutionalized system by which judges at all levels engage in a process of regular and rigorous internal self-assessment. The lower judiciary, for example, develops annual work plans for the lower courts that are submitted for the approval of the Chief Justice. By these work plans, the lower judiciary charts its objectives and develops initiatives to meet those objectives. Each year, we hold an annual forum called the Council of Judges, an exercise mandated by statute to review our procedures and the state of the administration of justice in all our courts. In a similar vein, the higher judiciary formulates its objectives and initiatives and deliberates on these at the Council of Judges. The judiciary's strategic objectives and plans are then presented publicly annually at the formal opening of each legal year, which is attended by key stakeholders in our justice system. In this way, we encourage judicial leadership at all levels of the courts. And third, and at the individual level, it is the personal responsibility and duty of every judge to ensure that our institutions and processes are working well. We occupy a unique space in the justice system, which combines an intimate understanding of the importance of our mission of doing justice and upholding access to justice for all, with a detachment which allows us to be driven by nothing but the public interest. By dint of that special vantage point, we each have a particular opportunity and responsibility as individuals to take a keen interest in how the justice system may be changed and improved, and to walk the talk by embodying that change and leading by example. This, I think, is precisely what the judiciary of Jamaica is embarking on, and it promises to be an exciting journey driven by an admirable vision. I wish you all very well for what I'm sure will be a most meaningful and fulfilling endeavor in your quest for court excellence. Like all long journeys, this too must begin with a single step, but we walk beside you. This launch of the Commission is a significant step forward, and I extend my heartiest congratulations and best wishes to Chief Justice Sykes and the Jamaican judiciary. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak to you, and I wish you a very, very good evening.
I hope you are hearing the virtual round of applause, Chief Justice Menon. There is indeed no better balm than the encouragement and the support of others on the same road. I will never forget those words, words to soothe the judicial soul. I now invite Her Honor, Mrs. Natalie Ebanks Miller, Judge of the Parish Court, who will give the vote of thanks. We are not yet hearing from Mrs. Ebanks Miller. I don't know.
Yes, thank you, Madam.
Welcome, my colleague and friend.
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chairperson. Bonjour, namaste, sat siri alkal, assalamu alaikum, hola, good morning, good day, and as we would say in Jamaica, wagwan. There are a few words which in any language resonate in the spirit and being of all humanity. Thank you are two such words. And I, Natalie Ebanks Miller, have been given this distinct and singular honor and privilege to raise those words at the launch of the commission of the senior judges of the parish courts. This is indeed an historic and illustrious occasion, perhaps the first of this nature using this platform. This journey began with a musical prelude that set the stage for what has been an event that has caused us sheer delight and held our rapt attention. We have been treated to our efficient chairperson, Her Honor, Ms. Sanchege Fiona Burrell, Senior Judge of the Parish Court, fondly known as the Sanchia, who, as our senior judge representative at this launch, carried out her functions with ebullience, ease, grace, and elan. Our thanks are also extended to those who welcomed us and gave opening remarks and greetings. To our Chief Justice of Jamaica, the Honorable Mr. Justice Brian Sykes, we thank you, sir. So important was this event that you ensured that we were all individually invited. Your email address to us could not hide the excitement in your spirit, and it echoed and reverberated in the email sent to us. All judges are invited to be part of this significant event. It is an international and global event. Thank you, sir. You have indicated to us the work that is being done in the parish courts. You have indicated, sir, that we are on the road to recovery. We thank you, sir, that you see us through leadership as incubators for the future environment of leadership, and that we, in keeping with the strategic plan that you have put in place, sir, will indeed implement tiers 2 and tiers 3. I would also like to thank the Honorable Mr. Justice Delroy Chuck, Minister of Justice, your continued support to training and development and your presence is greatly appreciated. Your unwavering commitment to the advancement and the improvement of the judiciary came out, particularly when you indicated that you would give us optimum support at all levels, particularly for broadband connectivity. Sir, we thank you and we look forward to that. To the Honorable Mr. Justice Patrick Brooks, President of the Court of Appeal. Sir, you have indicated quite clearly that the informal process that you saw will benefit from the formal structure that is now in place. Sir, you stand for many of us as a paragon of dignity and sagacity. We thank you, and we hear the cry for swift action and dispatch of the records of the court. To His Honor, Mr. Chester Crooks, to the witty and wise Chief Judge of the Parish Courts, who is unrelenting in his advocacy of the cause of the welfare and unity amongst the body. Although you spoke after the chief, your words were no less appreciated. To Mrs. Cameron Anglin and her introduction of our esteemed guest speaker, I would like to thank you, Mrs. Cameron Anglin, for the integral role you have played in hosting this function. To the Honorable Chief Justice Sundaresh Menon, Chief Justice of Singapore. Chief Justice Menon, it is with profound gratitude that we express our thanks for you sharing your vision with us, a journey towards court excellence. You have indicated to us, sir, that every worthwhile journey is a process that will take time. Despite the hardships, despite the fact that much remains to be done, we should consider excellence as a horizon, a destination worth traveling towards. We have learned many lessons from you, Chief Justice Menon, striving towards organizational efficient excellence, transformation, the transformational potential of technology, cultivating judicial leadership, are three of the points that we indeed will take from what you have said to us this morning for you, Chief Justice Menon, this evening for us. You have highlighted that despite the dismal situation that existed in Singapore, the delayed justice, the mounting criticisms for what was lacking in the judicial system, that Singapore was able, through comprehensive reform, to be what we aspire to and what the Chief Justice has borrowed from in so many ways, and we thank you, sir. You have indicated some of the things that we will indeed try to adopt here. We have the issue of the higher numbers of self-represented litigants. We also have issues in our family courts. And so what you have taught us, what you have shared with us in terms of the electronic filing, e-filing, e-litigation access by smart cards, the web browser being all that is needed, less legal trips, less trips to the law library for legal research, given the COVID virus. Even the idea of uploading at a database, which will serve as a repository, as that one-stop portal that persons can find authorities and keep them served. That too can be an integral part of our system. And so, sir, we thank you. We also thank you for reminding us something our Chief Justice has reminded us of and is a great champion of, that of judicial leadership to drive policy and reforms. Our Chief Justice is about empowering the judiciary. And we have heard your cry that personal responsibility to ensure our institutions and processes are working well will be done and should be done. We hear you, Chief Justice Menon. We have also heard you speak of the importance of the mission of doing justice with detachment, driven by nothing but public interest, but the public's interest. By dint of special vantage point, we must take a keen interest and walk the talk by embodying change and leading by example. So we thank you for what you have given us this evening, because your address to us, sir, is a poignant reminder of the importance of adaptability, technology, and judicial leadership to push our courts forward. You are truly one of the fathers of the new Renaissance. Our deepest appreciation to you, sir. The evolution of our times are in our hands and in our minds, and we join them with your hands, sir. We will never forget your address at the launch of this commission. We are deeply inspired, and I thank you. To our special invitees, distinguished guests from home and across the world, your prestige, your presence not only adds prestige and preeminence to the launch of this commission, but represents the manifestation of your commitment to the sharing of knowledge and the fostering of cooperation and contacts, which will lead to the exchange of experiences and our progression as a region and in the global arena. I thank you for your presence. The Honorable Mr. Justice Adrian Saunders, President of the Caribbean Court of Justice. The Honorable Mr. Brian Morey, Queen's Counsel, Chief Justice of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Dame Janice M. Pereira, the first female Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, a Ghanaian of no mean feat. We would also like to thank the Honorable Madame Justice Yonette D. Cummings Edwards for her presence. The Honorable Madame Chief Justice Michelle Arana. The Honorable Mr. Justice Sharad Avind Bobde. Her Ladyship, Mrs. Justice Mabel Ajitan, Chief Justice of the Turks and Caicos Islands. You took the time to attend the launch of the Senior Parish Court Judges Commission. This bears witness to the region's commitment to the support of judicial excellence. To the judges of the Court of Appeal, the judges of the Supreme Court, both serving and retired, we thank you for your continued mentorship of the judges of the Parish Court as we all strive to achieve the vision of the judiciary. To Mr. Courtney Williams, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of National Security, Lieutenant General Rocky Meade, Chief of Defense Staff, Jamaica Defense Force, Madam Director of Public Prosecutions, Ms. Paula Vanessa Llewellyn, Deputy Commissioner of Police, Mr. Fitz Bailey. We thank you for your attendance. Your presence is meaningful as we continue to endeavor to serving the Jamaican people together. Ms. Grace Carras, we also acknowledge and are delighted to have representation from the Standing Forum of Commercial Courts in your presence here. Now to my colleagues, judges of the parish courts, you are the raison d'etre of this event. This is our unique opportunity to forge ahead together in this global arena. We have before us an institutional body, a commission to provide the framework for our processes and procedures that will serve as a conduit for the transformational and innovative change that we have been reminded of. The Chief Justice of Jamaica is with us, and you heard how he commended us. So indeed, the power is in our hands and the force is with us. To the members of staff from the Court of Appeal, Supreme Court, Parish Courts, and Court Administration Division, your presence is a testimony to your unwavering commitment and support that we all benefit from on a daily basis. To all other specially invited guests, to members of the media and the press contacts, a voice in the fight against injustice with us. Last but certainly not least, I would like to thank the technical organizers of this function, Mrs. Trisha Cameron Anglin, Director, Court Administration, Ms. Sean Ashman, Director, Information, Communication, Technology, and her team, Mrs. Kadish Jarrett Flesher, Director, Client Services, Communication, and Information, and her team. Also, we extend our gratitude to the members of the Office of the Chief Justice. The world-class logistical support that you have provided required planning, an eye for detail, and you did all of that with praiseworthy professionalism. We say thank you for your motivation and dedication in following through and ensuring that this most momentous occasion was flawless and faultless. If I have not named you or singled you out, I still extend my gratitude. To quote the Chief Justice, in his email to us, he said, "Our judiciary is stepping boldly onto the world stage, beginning with the launch of this commission. We wholeheartedly embrace the transformational change that the Senior Parish Court Judges Commission will bring by facilitating through court leadership, management, and accountability the effectual work of the parish courts, which will lead to the execution of our strategic plan. This truly is a decade of creative excellence. Indeed, judicial excellence has come knocking on our doors, and we today meet it with arms wide open. To all I wish safety and blessings. Gracias, merci beaucoup, shukriya, Tanya Bad, Terima Kashish, Sheshene, I thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the singing of the You may be seated. I think we have lost our sound, but I think the anthem is also now done. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our program. Again, we thank you for having created and share with us a memorable moment in Jamaica's judicial history. Until we meet again, good morning and good evening.